Sorry, we're technically figuring things out. Hi everyone, thank you for coming, and I'm in the beginning stages of collecting data for my dissertation, which focuses on interrogating the various intersectionally informed politics embedded in spaying and neutering narratives of so-called companion species. I'm going to start this presentation by reading a vignette from my ethnographic field notes in order to situate some of what I'm doing in an engagement with human-animal studies as a site of feminist inquiry. The vignette demonstrates how human animals imprint socially constructed narratives onto non-human animals. I will then deconstruct the vignette as well as a number of spaying and neutering campaigns that I have encountered in an effort to demonstrate how socially constructed stereotypical narratives related to gender, race, class, and other social locations become imprinted upon the bodies of companion species in people's everyday lives, as well as in animal advocacy, and how in turn those non-human animal bodies are sites where Donna Haraway's concept of nature culture becomes tangible. Dude, don't neuter your dog. I did, and now he's not nearly the man he should be. This seemingly unsolicited advice left the mouth of a short white male in his late 20s, whose sleeve of colorful tattoos spanned from his muscled shoulder down to his hand, which grasped a worn leather leash. He leaned against the bar, arms and legs spread, taking up as much space as possible. At the end of the black leash sat a white and black pit bull who resembled Petey from the Little Rascals. The dog's pink tongue hung comically at the side of his smiling mouth as he leaned against his owner, looking like anything but the menacing stereotype that haunts his highly gendered, racialized, and classed breed. The comment was directed towards a tall Latino male wearing a white tank top and acid-washed jeans. The man's shoulder-length dark hair was pulled into a low ponytail at the base of his neck, and he appeared to be somewhere in his 20s. In one hand, the man grasped a tall glass that was half full of what looked to be some type of copper ale. In the other, he dangled a navy blue nylon leash. Wearing a matching navy blue nylon collar, a brindle puppy that visually presented as a pit bull mix was enthusiastically struggling to wedge himself underneath a brown bar stool in an attempt to retrieve a fallen French fry from the dirty stone floor. The men were at Casey Moore's Oyster House, which could arguably be considered the most popular or at least populated bar in the college town of Tempe, Arizona. They leaned against the grimy outdoor bar, seemingly enjoying the mild weather, the warm sun, and their alcoholic beverages with their fellow human and non-human bargoers. The tattooed man's comments sparked their lengthy conversation between the two men about the alleged virtues of having an intact, non-neutered, and therefore manly dog. He is protective of his home and owner, or master, more prone to violence than his fixed counterparts, and as a result of these alleged virtues, these men's conversations suggested that a manlier dog is cooler and more desirable than a dog that is not manly or, heaven forbid, feminine. It could be surmised from the conversation that the men believed that an unneutered dog, and especially an unneutered pit bull, was manlier and therefore better than the puny alternative, because he allegedly embodied the traditional characteristics associated with hegemonic masculinity. An intact dog was a strong, tough protector who would and could be violent when on the defense or provoked, whereas a fixed male dog was positioned as traditionally feminized, as a weak, helpless coward and as someone needing protection, as opposed to the other way around. Neutering one's dog, which does involve actual castration, was therefore positioned as a feminizing act that blurred the boundaries between biology and social construction, ultimately resulting in the dog being less masculine. Having a manly dog also seemed to imply that the men were more manly themselves. The men's discussion of their dogs quickly became intertwined with their discussion of their own bodies and identities. The fixed dog's lack of musculature and toughness was paralleled with the tattooed man's desire to spend more time in the weight room and not be seen on the street with his puny dog in case it reflected poorly on him. This discussion demonstrated that having a neutered and therefore less masculine dog meant that said dog's owner was also stripped of at least some of the potential elements of his masculinity. The men's own masculinities were thus wrapped up with the masculinities of their dogs, with their so-called man's best friend. And given that masculinity is socially constructed, it is people that imprint gendered stereotypes onto their animals and not the animals themselves who implement them naturally. As interpreted, socially constructed gender performance intertwined with interpretations of his material body has the ability to say a great deal about not only the dog himself, but the dog's owner and overarching social value systems as well. The men's conversation at Casey Moore's revealed how the sex, gender, nature, culture, and human, non-human dichotomies that are fervently upheld in a great deal of Eurocentric humanist discourse, scholarly and otherwise, become so easily intertwined in human conceptualizations and engagements with non-human animals. It also provided a clear example of how people imprint gendered stereotypes onto their companion species. But while there exists the tendency to only discuss how humans are impacted by socially constructed identity categories and ideologies, those constructions also affect those who exist outside the scope of human as a bounded category. And given that the lives of humans and animals are intimately and affectively entangled, considering how animals and their human companions are impacted by those socially constructed identity categories and ideologies has the ability to reveal in a new and more complex way how those same categories and ideologies impact humans as well. The men's conversation also provided an example of the complex, intersectionally situated narrative that surrounds the deeply political nature of spaying and neutering. There's a rather widespreading Real Men Neuter Their Dogs campaign created by the organization Spay Aware that often features images of large, muscled men of color with dogs that present as so-called bully breeds. A representative of Spay Aware claims the campaign was created because, and I quote, "Many men tend to project their attitudes and feelings about masculinity and virility onto their dogs, with the result that they refuse to have them neutered." And further explains that the campaign posters are, and again I quote, "witty, thought-provoking, and a way to engage particularly with young men who see their dog's virility as an extension of their own." Another spaying and neutering campaign, produced by the animal rights organization PETA, or People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, includes the slogan, "Too much pussy can be a bad thing. Spay or neuter today," and features a shirtless, muscled Mike the Situation Sorrentino, a cast member of MTV's Jersey Shore, holding a cat while surrounded by other cats. This campaign is deeply embedded with narratives involving ethnicity and hegemonic masculinity, as Jersey Shore was a television show that perpetuated stereotypes of Italian Americans and glorified a variety of its cast members' sexist behaviors. And while Jersey Shore certainly demonstrated various performative aspects of gender that could potentially be read as non-normative or challenging to traditional elements of hegemonic masculinity, such as the male cast members' extensive beauty maintenance rituals involving tanning, hair care, and accessorizing, the glorification of violence, muscularity, and the objectification and sexualization of women, which the PETA campaign also demonstrates, situates the television show rather firmly in a misogynistic realm. There is another spaying and neutering campaign that includes the image where a cat's head, has been photoshopped onto a pregnant human female's body and includes the slogan, "Stop Unwanted Pregnancies." This ad is reminiscent of the copious number of campaigns working to prevent human teen pregnancies as well as abortions, which far too frequently feature women of color, making them reminiscent of the various eugenics and sterilization campaigns that's shaped and continue to shape attitudes surrounding reproductive rights as well as policy. The troubling belief systems that drive these campaigns assist in determining who is and who is not of value in our society. They determine who should and should not reproduce. Furthermore, the juxtaposition of the cat's head onto the woman's body could also be speaking to the racist situating of women of color as closer to animals, especially given that it tends to be women of color who are discouraged from reproducing. These racialized and explicitly racist narratives are entangled with various attempts at so-called population control in the United States and abroad. The Stop Unwanted Pregnancy campaign therefore has a legacy that surpasses the desire to reduce the cat population and ultimately transcends species. Yet another spaying and neutering campaign produced by SPCA, or the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, International features 2 black male animals, 1 cat and 1 dog, presented with signs around their necks in an attempt to duplicate a human criminal's mugshot with the question, "Is your pet a sex offender?" below the image. These discourses about controlling animal reproduction act as a site where racist tropes about sexuality and reproduction are reiterated, and as a result, these campaigns demonstrate the highly entangled nature of our constructions and conceptualizations of non-human animals with the gendered and racialized narratives of human animals. A final spaying and neutering campaign example that I will mention was started by Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, one of the largest no-kill animal shelters in the United States, which is based in Utah and has been used, but the campaign has been used rather extensively throughout the United States. It features the slogan, "Hooters for Neuters," and was started, and I quote, "to reach men who might feel uncomfortable neutering their pets for fear it will take away their masculinity." This campaign includes a great many objectifying posters and other campaign material featuring images of sexualized, scantily clad women who conform to normative standards of beauty in an effort to promote spaying and neutering overall. But they aim to specifically highlight events where, and again I quote, "men can enjoy free chicken wings while visiting with the Hooters girls and watching sports games while their pet is neutered on a mobile spay-neuter unit or transported to a nearby clinic before being returned to Hooters to be reunited with their companion people." The Hooters for Neuters campaign interweaves animal advocacy and the blatant objectification and sexualization of women. In working to combat the fear of emasculated companion species, and in turn their owners, and to help decrease the tragic and staggering euthanasia rates in the United States, Best Friends Animal Sanctuary and other organizations that have adopted the program perpetuate sexism. They also legitimately help human and non-human animals and are, by and large, very well intentioned. But however unfortunate it may be, injustices and inequalities are entangled, and as scholar Julie Urbanik explained, we cannot fight animal exploitation without challenging patriarchy, and we cannot challenge patriarchy without fighting animal exploitation. Just as the overarching, all-encompassing social mechanism that is the patriarchy is contingent upon the domination and oppression of women, the reign of anthropocentrism is reliant upon the domination and oppression of non-human animals. And given that oppressions are knitted in such a way that one can never be made entirely separate from another, the fight for equality must transcend normative gender as well as species models that contribute to discrimination and exploitation. And while the Hooters for Neuters campaign, as well as the other campaigns that I mentioned here, claim to promote animal rights, and they certainly do produce some positive material change that I do not wish to entirely discount, they also simultaneously reinforce highly troubling, archaic narratives surrounding gender, race, and other social locations. Issues surrounding masculinity, as well as class in conversation with the politics of spaying and neutering, become further tangible when one considers the existence of nudicles, which are hormone-free artificial silicone testicles produced for companion species. They come in a range of sizes and can cost anywhere from $150 a pair to well over $500. Using the campaign slogan, "It's like nothing ever changed," they act as a stand-in for the real thing. In our ocular-centric, product-obsessed capitalist culture, and their popularity continues to grow every year. A man who purchased the product for his family's pet dog claimed nudicles, and I quote, "let the poor dog keep his dignity," after neutering. And they were even featured in an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, when Bruce Jenner purchased them for Kim's boxer Rocky in an effort to assure the dog's masculinity was retained following surgery, and perhaps also to continue the family's trend of embracing plastic surgery. The examples that I've explored here, including the conversation that I overheard and interpreted in my ethnographic field notes, the various spay and neuter campaigns, and the surgical implants nudicles, demonstrate how humans imprint oftentimes stereotypical, hierarchically drenched meanings onto the animal others that they interact with in their daily lives. How and why these gendered as well as racialized, class, and sexualized stereotypes develop has real lived implications on the interreliant lives of humans and non-human animals. These examples also demonstrate that the seemingly simple question, to neuter or not to neuter, that appears on the surface to exist in the realm of the biological, of nature, quickly reveals itself as a space where Harawaiian notions of nature culture materially and discursively manifest. And it is in this space that we come to see that in feminism and feminist scholarship, to quote Donna Haraway, the category work of gender is never alone, but is instead complexly reciprocally implicated with other social locations, including race, class, nationality, sexuality, and even species. For in exploring the entangled situatedness of these categories while simultaneously working to destabilize the nature culture and human non-human dichotomies, as well as other problematic and limiting dualisms, one comes to see that there always exist more layers, further knots that need to be disentangled. So thank you for coming.